Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Alexis Green. If you are new here, I am so grateful that you are here and stumbled upon this video. So in this video, we'll be talking about 5 different things that you can do to improve yourself by 1% each and every day. Sometimes the smallest of things can really make a big difference when it's done consistently over time. And so in this video, we'll be talking about 5 different ways, different little techniques, things that you can do to make sure that you are continuously improving yourself by baby steps each and every day. And so with that, let's get into the video. And so the first one I like to talk about is ask small questions. Now, the quality of our questions can really make up the quality of our lives. There's a great quote out there that says, "What shapes our lives are the questions we ask, refuse to ask, and never think of asking." So by asking small questions, we can actually keep the fight and flight response on the off position. And essentially what that will do is that we will be able to bypass the fear. And so when you can bypass the fear, it allows the brain to focus on problem solving and eventually figuring out answers to the questions that you've asked. And so inside the brain, our hippocampus main criteria for storage is repetition. So if you continuously ask questions over and over, eventually it'll start to think of ideas. So eventually it gives the brain no choice but to kind of put more attention to it and eventually start to give you ideas and answers. If you ask a question often enough, you'll find that your brain will start to store the questions and it'll start to turn them over and eventually will generate some really new, interesting ideas. And so whenever you use questions, make sure you ask with a gentle spirit, because if you were to be very harsh or urgent, it can bring up the fear and that can essentially clog up the creative process, and you don't want that. So small questions are a powerful way to build up ideas for mind sculptures, which brings us to our next way: think small thoughts. And so by thinking small thoughts, you'll be able to develop new social, mental, and even physical skills just by imagining them. So mind sculptures is essentially a technique that involves total but still imaginary sensory immersion. It requires you to pretend you're doing an action, and in that action, instead of just seeing it, you feel all 5 senses. So make sure you think of every little detail. Within minutes of practicing a task using all of your senses, the brain's chemistry will begin to change. It will rewire its cells and the connection between the cells to create complex motor or verbal skills. With enough practice, the new skills are mastered. And so that is number 2. That is the second way you can start to improve yourself 1% every day. The third thing you can do is take small actions. Now, the first 2 that I've mentioned can be extremely helpful, but you need to eventually take action. And so by taking steps that are so minuscule, that are just so tiny, it allows you to also bypass the fight and flight response. And when you're able to get around that fear, the small actions will be able to trick the brain into thinking, hey, you know what, this is really, really small. This change is so tiny that it really doesn't make a difference. There's no risk of failure, there's no need to get worked up, and you'll be able to just bypass that fear really quickly and easily. And so over time, you'll be able to inevitably make really solid habits. Small actions allow you and your brain to build up permanent habits in the future. By taking steps that are so small, you'll be able to go past any obstacles that you might have had beforehand. So a quick little example could be, let's say that you want to cut down on the amount of snacks you've been eating. So let's say for a particular snack that you're having, you decide to throw out the first bite and then have the rest. And then over a couple days or a week, you decide to throw out 2 bites and then eat the rest. And then over time, you throw out more and more until eventually you won't need to be doing that anymore. And so that's a little small example of how it could be done. It can be done in many, many ways, depending on what you want to accomplish. Completely up to you and what you want to do. But that's just a small example. These small actions and steps can be very small and are very small, but they can lead to really rapid change in the future. And the greatest thing is that if you stay consistent with it, it'll be permanent change. You won't fall back into old habits because the actions that you're taking are so small over time. It won't seem like a big difference when you're taking the small actions now, but in the future, it can really make a dramatic difference. Now, when you're taking steps this small, you may be asking, well, how am I supposed to get to point B when I'm doing steps that are so minuscule? Like, this is going to take forever. Well, with this, you really do need to have a lot of optimism, a lot of trust and patience that it'll all work out for you. Now, of course, you can make larger actions. You can start off small, and then maybe over time you start making larger and larger actions, and then it'll stay consistent, which would be good. A lot of times when we're starting new things, we sometimes tend to take a huge step and maybe things happen or we get scared and then we retreat back. So by taking small steps, you'll be able to bypass any type of fear, which is super helpful if you want any type of permanent and dramatic improvement for you in the future. And with that brings us to our next topic, which is solve small problems. And so with this, we are so accustomed to living with small annoyances that it's not always easy to identify them, let alone solve them. But these annoyances, these small little annoyances, have a way of building up over time if we don't become aware of them beforehand. And if you wait long enough, it could block yourself to any type of change in the future. And so by training yourself to spot small problems, you can avoid underdoing much more painful remedies later. When we are trying to make a change, it can be tempting to ignore the subtle warning signs. You know, the warning signs that say, something's wrong here, you need to slow down, retrace your steps, and investigate. But if we continue to avoid these small problems, they will grow and grow until we create a mess so big that we are required to basically stop everything and solely focus on that problem until it is solved. So let's try not to get to that point, and let's try to focus on, be more aware if there's any type of small problems that we need to just figure out and solve beforehand so it doesn't get to that point in the future. Focusing on small mistakes now can save us from a lot of damage in the future. And so the last one is bestow small rewards. And so with small rewards, so whether you wish to train yourself or others to instill better habits, small rewards are basically the perfect encouragement. Not only are they inexpensive and convenient for you, but they also stimulate the internal motivation required for lasting change. And so make sure you really think before deciding on your little small reward. And you want the reward to have these 3 qualities. The first thing is reward should be appropriate to the goal. The second thing is the reward should be appropriate to the person. And the third thing is the reward should be free or inexpensive. It could be something, as simple as, if I get something done, maybe I'll have 30 minutes to go and watch TV. It can be literally anything. But just make sure it's not, super expensive. You can, but you don't need that. And so that is the 5 different things that you can do to start improving yourself 1% every day. When you improve yourself a little every day and you stay consistent with it, it can really lead to big changes, to huge improvements in the future. It may not happen today, it may not happen tomorrow, but one day you'll be able to look back and be like, you know what? I'm glad I started with that little small thing that one day, because it led to where I am now. Taking small steps might be the best option for you for that specific thing. So of course you don't have to do it for everything. Small steps can really lead to big changes. And so I hope you found this video to be helpful. If you did, make sure you give this video a thumbs up for me. And in the comments down below, let me know if you are going to try any of these out. And lastly, if you're new here, make sure you click the subscribe button, because I'm here each and every week to uplift your minds and help you become the best person that you can be. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week.